The judge didn't even look at me when he said it. Just that tired, procedural tone judges use when the story's already over for them, but not for you. Motion denied. Judgment for the defendant. 12 words. 12 minutes of deliberation. $3.5 million in promotion equity. Gone. It was over before I understood it had started. The lawyers beside me didn't move. My name still hung on the docket monitor like a ghost. Collins V's, Pentura Global Inc. The courtroom smelled of toner and cold carpet. Someone coughed behind me. A bailiff's radio cracked once and went silent again. The world didn't explode. It just exhaled and kept going, as if my entire career wasn't dying right there on that cheap wooden bench. When I stood, the leather of my shoes squeaked against the floor. The same pair I'd bought for the promotion meeting that never happened. You did everything right, my attorney whispered. We just couldn't prove intent. Intent. That word still burns. As if accidentally deleting my entire year's work, my project files, my presentations, and the email trail documenting my boss's orders was just an innocent keystroke. As if erasing a man's livelihood could happen by mistake. I signed the stipulation papers outside the courtroom. The pen felt heavier than it should. My signature looked foreign. When I looked up, I saw her, my former supervisor, Victoria Hale, shaking hands with the company counsel. Immaculate suit, calm smile, pearl earrings that matched her tone of voice when she'd told me last year, "We just need to smooth the numbers a bit. Everyone does it. Everyone except me." They walked past me like I was air. For them, the trial was closure. For me, it was the first clean page of nothing. I stepped outside into the gray afternoon, the courthouse steps slick from last night's rain. The world smelled of ozone and defeat. My phone buzzed once. Bank of America. Account alert. Incoming legal fee deduction. Perfect timing. I didn't go home. I didn't have one anymore. My lease was up. My boxes in storage. All I had left was the unit key, a bent brass tag with 47B etched in fading blue. Somewhere behind a corrugated door sat 10 years of my life. Framed certificates, a broken monitor, a stack of binders labeled Pentura, Q4 Strategy. I didn't know why, but I started walking there, maybe to prove I still existed somewhere on paper. It took me 40 minutes. The storage complex was half empty, the kind of place where light flickers before it reaches you. Inside, it smelled like cardboard, oil, and old air. My unit door rattled when I rolled it up. Dust greeted me like a memory. The first thing I saw was the box marked Promotion Prep, Confidential. I'd packed it the night before that meeting, back when I still believed merit mattered. Inside, printed slide decks, a portfolio draft, a copy of the equity agreement template I never signed because HR hadn't finalized the new comp structure yet. A year of midnight spreadsheets for nothing. I sat on a folding chair, let the metal dig into my back, and tried to rewind everything. I remembered the morning it all cracked. August 17th. She'd called me into her office, voice syrup sweet. "Jason, I'm getting heat from upstairs about your forecast adjustments. You can't flag revenue like that. It makes us look off target." "It's off target," I said. "Then make it look on target. We're not falsifying anything. We're just rephasing." That word, rephasing X, was her shield. Behind it lived every unethical thing she ever ordered. When I refused, she smiled the way people smile before closing a door. A week later, my system access glitched. The next day, IT confirmed my project folder was gone. 2 days later, she reported me for non-cooperation. HR's tone changed overnight. By Monday, I was on administrative leave. I had believed in fairness back then, believed that discovery would save me, that the truth lived somewhere in those emails. But in court, the company claimed they'd produced everything, and my side never found the retention addendum or the internal compliance notes that had protected the last 2 executives promoted before me. My case collapsed like a tent without poles. I leaned forward now, staring at the stacked boxes like they owed me something. The storage light hummed overhead. My breath fogged in the cold air. All I could think about was her voice on that last call. "You're making this personal, Jason. Careers come and go. Don't ruin yours trying to prove a point." I had already ruined it. The only question left was whether it would stay buried. I stood, brushed dust off my hands, and pulled out a second box from the bottom row, one I didn't remember labeling. On the side, in faded marker, it said, "Off-Site 21, Compliance Retreat." I froze for a second. I hadn't thought about that trip in years. The desert resort, the endless PowerPoints about ethical growth initiatives, the folder of printed policies we never read. I sliced the tape open with my key. Inside, notebooks, pamphlets, a broken lanyard. I lifted a stack of files and heard something slide behind the cardboard flap. Thin, paper on paper. When I tilted the box, a manila envelope slipped out. Edges yellowed with dust. No label. No tape. Just weight. I stared at it for a long time before I touched it. My name wasn't on it, but the handwriting on the corner, a small blue VH, stopped my breath. Victoria Hale. The woman who'd told the world I'd fabricated claims. The woman who swore under oath that all records had been disclosed. The woman who'd deleted my work and called it a system error. The envelope was thin, maybe half an inch thick. But as I held it, I realized it was heavier than anything I'd carried out of that courtroom. I didn't open it. Not yet. Some part of me wanted to drag it straight to a lawyer. Another wanted to burn it and forget. Instead, I placed it on the folding chair, sat on the concrete, and just stared at it in the fluorescent hum. Because for the first time in a year, something felt unfinished. And that somehow felt like hope. It took me an hour to open it, not because I was afraid of what I'd find, but because I was afraid it might be nothing, that it would turn out to be old expense receipts, or someone else's forgotten notes. Another dead end in a year full of them. When I finally peeled back the flap, dust rose like smoke. Inside were three things. First, a thin stack of papers folded inside an HR header sheet. Retention Addendum, Strategic Growth Division. My breath caught at the second line. It was my name, my signature, and hers. The addendum was real. A document I'd been told was never finalized. Dated, stamped, countersigned by HR. The language was precise. Promotion to Director, Level 3. Upon Q4 completion of Compliance Realignment Project. Equity grant vesting within 30 days of board approval. The project I'd finished before everything collapsed. The promotion I'd supposedly imagined. Second, 3 printed email chains. The headers were partially highlighted. Her initials again, VH, plus 2 names from senior leadership. The subject line read, Pipeline Narrative, Internal Only. I scanned the first thread. From VH2, B. Cho, L. Singh. Jason flagged several inconsistencies in the regional forecast. He's technically correct, but if we realign reporting windows, we can maintain optics without touching actuals. I'll handle it quietly. Don't loop compliance yet. There it was, in plain text. Realign reporting windows. The sanitized phrase that had buried me. I flipped to the second chain, dated a month later. From B. Cho, if Jason refuses to cooperate, label as performance issue. Keep communication offline. Offline. Discovery proof. The third printout was an expense report, a scanned receipt from a leadership retreat in Sedona, dated 2 weeks before my suspension. One of the signatures at the bottom was from a junior compliance analyst, the same guy who'd quietly messaged me months ago. Wish I could help, man, but legal says I'm done here. The third item in the envelope made my stomach twist. A small black USB drive, taped to the back of the HR sheet. In silver pen, Q4, review, audio. I stared at it for a long time. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from something sharper, vindication mixed with fury. I'd spent 12 months being called delusional, obsessive, bitter. And here, sitting in my lap, under a flickering light, was everything I'd said existed. I dug out my laptop from another box, the one that still smelled faintly of burnt coffee and defeat, and plugged in the drive. The screen blinked once, loaded 3 audio files. File 1, call, notes, Tenna, 12, static, then voices, a man's. Legal doesn't want these on record. A woman's, hers, calm, smooth, rehearsed. Jason's a good analyst, but he's not a company man. If he won't flex numbers, we'll flex him out. My chest tightened. Every syllable was an echo of that day she smiled and told me, it's just business. File 2. Gyokar meeting, background chatter, laughter, glasses clinking. A different voice, someone high up. Compliance alignment sounds nice on paper. Let's just make sure your guy doesn't file anything formal. Her reply, already handled. Handled. I paused the audio and stared at the waveform, each spike like a nail. The third file was shorter, 27 seconds. A muffled door close, a chair scraping, then her voice again, lower, sharper. We'll say the data was purged in the server migration. He won't have proof. I sat there, frozen. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until the recording ended. For a minute, I just listened to the silence of the storage unit, the hum of fluorescent light, the distant rumble of passing trucks. Then I exhaled, long and shaky. This wasn't just evidence. It was concealed discovery, withheld materials that could invalidate an entire verdict. I pulled my phone from my pocket, opened the camera, and started filming. One continuous take. October 19th, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Storage Unit 47B. Found items sealed in a manila envelope labeled only with initials VH. Contents include retention addendum, 3 email printouts, and 1 USB device containing audio recordings relevant to Pentura, global litigation. I filmed each page, each file name, each timestamp. Then I sealed everything back into the envelope, wrapped it in plastic, and signed across the tape. When I finished, I sat back against the wall and let my mind race. The questions came fast. If these documents existed, how did they end up in my old compliance box? Why didn't legal find them during discovery? And the one that made my hands sweat, who else knew they were missing? I looked at the HR signature again, the compliance analyst's initials, the 2 executives on the email threads. 5 names total. I wrote them on a sticky note. Hale, Cho, Singh, Daniels, Murray, then drew a small circle next to one of them. My old mentor, Greg Daniels, who'd testified for the company. Maybe he hadn't known. Maybe he had. Either way, he was still my only possible contact left inside. It was almost midnight when I drove home, if you could call a rented room above a laundromat home. The envelope sat on the passenger seat like a live wire. I didn't sleep. I kept replaying the audio until the words etched into my skull. If he won't flex numbers, we'll flex him out. At 3 a.m., I opened a fresh notebook and started writing a timeline. Dates, quotes, references, every discrepancy between what the company had submitted and what this envelope proved. I mapped it like a crime scene. By dawn, I knew what I had. Not just evidence. Leverage. But leverage only matters if you use it without showing your hand. So I made a list of what needed to happen next. 1. Verify chain of custody. 2. Make duplicates, notarized and time-stamped. 3. Send anonymous verification to someone who can't be bought. 4. Force the company to reveal itself. I looked at the sticky note again, 5 names, and beneath them I wrote one more word. Tomorrow. Because tomorrow I'd stop being the guy who lost everything. Tomorrow I'd start being the reason they couldn't sleep. The first rule when you finally hold the truth is simple. Don't flinch. If they smell desperation, they'll bury you again. Deeper this time. So the next morning, I became someone else. Not the man who'd lost in court, not the angry ex-employee. I became the quiet variable no one noticed until it was too late. At 7 a.m., I stood outside a UPS store with a thermos of gas station coffee, watching the neon sign flicker to life. When the clerk unlocked the door, I walked in carrying 2 sealed envelopes, both notarized, both containing identical USB copies, printed transcripts, and a written statement of chain of custody. One went to a private attorney recommended by my old mentor Greg's former paralegal, someone who owed me a favor from back when I helped him save a contract. The other went to a small investigative newsroom known for publishing only with hard documentation. No sensationalism, no leaks, just proof. At 9:14 a.m., I emailed Greg Daniels. Subject line, need a word, off record. He replied 4 hours later, you're poking a hornet's nest. Meet in person only. That was good. It meant he was scared, not dismissive. We met that evening in a quiet bar near the river. He looked older, paler, the kind of tired that comes from pretending not to know. You shouldn't have reached out, he said. You were on the board's compliance subcommittee. You signed off on my termination report. He exhaled. We didn't have all the data then. You had enough to ruin me. He didn't argue, just looked down, then slid a small napkin across the table. On it, a single name and phone number. If you want this fixed, talk to her. She's on the audit chair's staff. Don't tell me anything else. I left before he could change his mind. At midnight, I called the number. A woman answered, crisp, neutral voice. This is Rachel Lee. Ms. Lee, I have evidence your board hasn't seen. It concerns false discovery statements in the Pentura case. I'm not seeking money. I'm seeking correction. Pause. Long. Then, you'll send 1 page, one only, no attachments, tomorrow before 9 a.m. Click. She didn't say goodbye. That was a good sign, too. So I scanned the first page of the retention addendum, the part showing both signatures and the equity clause. Nothing more. I redacted everything except names and dates. Sent it at 8:57 a.m. At 10:11, I received an automated corporate bounce notice. Message forwarded internally per audit review protocol. At 10:14, my phone rang. Unknown number. This is Lee. We're reviewing. Then she hung up again. The waiting nearly killed me. I went for a walk, circled 3 blocks, replayed the audio in my head, the phrases echoing like a curse. He's not a company man. We'll flex him out. By evening, my inbox lit up again. A message from a journalist I'd contacted anonymously the day before. Company declined comment. Said an internal audit is underway. You're on to something. Don't contact anyone else yet. Perfect. The pressure was building. Quietly. Invisibly. The kind that eats from the inside. The next day I got a voicemail from an unlisted number. The voice was unmistakable. Victoria Hale. Jason, this is unexpected. Let's talk. No lawyers. You deserve some closure. There are ways we can, resolve old wounds. Call me. Resolve old wounds? That was her code for buy silence. I didn't call back. Instead, I rented a second mailbox under a different name, moved the original envelope into a safety deposit box, and drafted a chain of custody statement addressed to the State Securities Oversight Unit. I didn't send it yet. I just wanted her to feel that I could. 2 days later, she sent an email. Jason, I don't want this to escalate. We can find a solution that helps you move forward. Lunch tomorrow, same cafe as before? The audacity almost made me laugh. She thought she still controlled the script. I replied, sure. The next afternoon, I walked into the cafe 15 minutes early and ordered water. She arrived exactly on time, punctual as ever, tailored, polished, every inch the executive she wanted the world to believe in. Jason, she began, that practiced half-smile sliding into place, I'm glad you're here. Look, there's no reason for bitterness. I can make a few calls. You could consult for us again, even off payroll. Discreetly. Discreetly, I repeated. She nodded. We both know these things get messy. No one wins. I'm just suggesting we handle it like adults. Then she leaned in, lowered her voice. I heard you found something in storage. Old files can be misleading. It's easy to misinterpret context. And there it was. Confirmation. She knew exactly what I'd found. I let the silence stretch until she started to fidget. Then I asked quietly, "Did you ever wonder how many copies exist?" Her smile froze, just for a fraction of a second. Then she straightened her back. "Jason, you need to be careful. Defamation cuts both ways." "I'm not defaming anyone," I said. "I'm quoting." She left soon after, said she had another meeting. But when she stood, her hand shook slightly as she reached for her purse. That night, I uploaded a single non-identifying audio clip to a secure journalistic server. Just the line, "He won't have proof." No names, no company references. Enough for verification, not exposure. Within 24 hours, regulators sent Ventura a preservation order. The audit committee called an emergency meeting. Employees started whispering. I knew because Greg texted me, "You set a fire." I didn't respond. At 7:12 a.m. the next morning, an email landed in my inbox from Rachel Lee. Subject, Board Special Session. "Today, your information triggered mandatory review. Do not contact media further. Wait for official outreach." I stared at those lines until they blurred. Then I stood, shaved, put on the same suit I'd worn in court, and drove downtown. When I reached the glass tower that had once held my office, I parked across the street. Through the tinted lobby doors, I saw them. Security guards, executives, board members walking fast, eyes down. The kind of silence that only comes before impact. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. Because in every direction, I could see it spreading. The way truth does when it's finally cornered. And for the first time since the verdict, I felt something dangerously close to peace. But it wasn't over. Not yet. By the time the headlines broke, I was already gone. Not fleeing. Just quiet. Watching. The first article hit late Friday night. Ventura Global faces internal inquiry over withheld compliance records. Subhead, Board schedules emergency session after discovery of unreleased documentation tied to prior litigation. They didn't mention my name, but they didn't need to. Every person who'd sat in that courtroom with me knew exactly who prior litigation referred to. By Monday morning, the market had caught the scent. Ventura's stock slid 8% before lunch. 2 more journalists started circling. One called the company's PR head for comment. She gave the standard line, "We take all compliance matters seriously." But the real blow didn't come from the press. It came from inside. Greg texted again. Audit committee pulled Hale off all projects. Legal's in panic mode. I didn't answer, just took a long breath and looked at the envelope still sitting on my desk, the same one that had almost turned to dust before saving my life. 2 days later, an official email arrived, this time from Ventura's outside counsel. "Mr. Collins, in light of recently surfaced materials, the company intends to move for a review of your case. We'd appreciate an opportunity to discuss potential resolution terms." They called it resolution. I called it karma. We met in a conference room I used to know by heart. 12 chairs, glass walls, the skyline behind them like a reminder of what power looks like when you think it's permanent. 3 people sat across from me, the new general counsel, the board's legal advisor, and Rachel Lee. Rachel nodded first. "We've confirmed that several documents relevant to your discovery request were improperly archived. That error affected both internal review and court proceedings." "Error," I repeated. "That's one word for it." The general counsel shifted in his seat. "We're prepared to discuss restitution. Quietly." I leaned back, hands folded. Quiet isn't my currency anymore. What followed wasn't cinematic. It was surgical. They offered reinstatement. I declined. They offered back pay. I countered. They offered equity value at my original promotion rate. I reminded them of 12 months of interest, legal fees, and the market growth they'd denied me. In the end, the number they slid across the table wasn't just money. It was validation. 7 figures. confidential, irrevocable. But I asked for one more thing, a single sentence to be included in the settlement letter. The board acknowledges Mr. Collins' contributions to governance improvements and ethical compliance structure. They hesitated, then Rachel nodded once. Done. When it was over, she walked me to the elevator. You could have gone nuclear, she said. Why stop here? Because they already detonated themselves, I said. Outside, the city felt different. Clearer somehow. The rain had stopped. The air sharp with that post-storm electricity. That night, I packed everything from the storage unit into my trunk. The envelope went into a fireproof safe. The rest, boxes of old proposals, awards, files, I left behind. Some things don't deserve to follow you. 3 weeks later, an email arrived from a rival consultancy I'd once pitched against. Jason, heard about your situation. We're expanding, director level, full autonomy, better equity. Interested? I laughed when I read it. The same job, the same salary, the same title that started all this. But this time, on my terms. Still, I didn't say yes immediately. Something in me had shifted. The chase wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about ownership. I met the firm's CEO for coffee. He was younger than I expected. Direct, pragmatic. You've got scars, he said, but you've got fire. We could use that. I appreciate it, I told him, but I'm done working for people who mistake silence for loyalty. He grinned. Then start something. So I did. 6 months later, I registered Novastrat Consulting, a boutique firm focused on corporate ethics and risk mitigation. Irony not lost on me. No partners, no politics, no slogans, just clear, clean work. Within a month, we had our first retainer. The client, Pentura Global. Their board had voted to bring in an independent advisory firm to rebuild internal governance, and Rachel Lee, now interim compliance chief, had made the recommendation herself. When I walked into that same boardroom for the first time since my firing, no one met my eyes. Victoria Hale's nameplate was gone. She'd resigned for personal reasons. I didn't gloat, didn't smirk. I just opened my laptop and started outlining their new reporting protocols. The silence was exquisite. Later, as I left the building, Greg caught up to me in the lobby. You actually did it, he said. No, I said. They did. I just let them watch. That night, I drove to the edge of the city, to the same storage facility where it all began, Unit 47B. I opened the door one last time. Empty, except for the folding chair and the single bulb humming above. I placed the now empty manila envelope on the chair, sealed it again, and wrote one line on it with a marker. Everything you bury grows back. Then I closed the door and walked away. Somewhere behind me, the hum of that old fluorescent light faded into silence. And for the first time since the verdict, I realized I hadn't just won. I'd rewritten the ending,